Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Monday's edition of National Matters, 11th of November, 7th of November, 2022. I am your host, Pastor Moses Chiluba. Of course, in the studio, we have His Excellency, the former ambassador. Once a pilot, always a pilot. You retire as a colonel, they will forever refer to you as a colonel. You retire as a doctor, they will still say doctor. I don't know what is in political circles. If I've made a mistake, it's my good mistake. But His Excellency Ambassador Mwamba, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Pastor, and good to be back to Cabinet Television, to your audience on DSTV, to your audience on GoTV, to your audience on various social media platforms. And on Stopstar, of course. But it's good to be back.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And
I haven't been here for some time.
As you said, Ambassador, Cabinet TV, by the grace of God, has stretched its wings. We are being seen around the globe.
Oh, we thank God.
We are grateful. I'm sure some of your friends living overseas, they will see how you have put on weight.
I'm trying very hard, Pastor. I'm walking every morning and I'm trying to eat less. I think, Chiwakwati, when there are factors, you change jobs and all of a sudden, why, sir? And people are surprised that you also can get fat.
Yeah.
But I'm trying very hard.
Ambassador, tell the nation. I want to look at political leadership in the nation of Zambia tonight. I know that I don't tell my guests the questions or what I'll talk about because I want it to come from the heart.
Yeah.
Your vision and everything. But tell the nation, you have saved in different capacities in this nation. From the time you joined the government, where did you save?
Thank you very much. I've been a student of watching political leadership in this country. I have studied and I've written about the history of this country. You can trace it from 500 years ago to when we begin to shape up as a nation, because we're various nations. The Lozis, the Bembas, the Chewas, we're various kingdoms. But by 1890, you begin to see what we call Zambia begin to shape up. So I've studied this country to the first federations for workers that were done in 1912, 1935, 1948, when we had the first political party. And you see the progress of this country in political leadership. 1953, the ANC formed a proper political formation, gathering workers and ordinary people. The splinter parties that emerged in 1957, 59, the birth of Zambia, led by Dr. Kaunda and UNIP, the 27-year rule, and then the various 5 presidents we've had since then. From Dr. Chiluba, President Manawasa, President Rupia Banda, President Michael Sata, President Edgar Lungu, and now President Hakainde Hichilema, making us 7. Yeah, so I've been a keen student of our politics, and with God's grace, I've been at the heart of some of those political developments in this country. You are aware that I saved the former president, Dr. Frederick Chiluba, in retirement. I met him in 2002, immediately left office. We worked so well together that he employed me under his office, under government, and I've been an employee of government since 2002 for the last 20 years. I served Dr. Chiluba as his administrator. I served him as his official spokesperson. I held a position that is equivalent of a deputy permanent secretary for a period of 10 years. When President Michael Sata won elections, because the nation may remember that in 2002, politically, with the difficulties Dr. Chiluba was facing with his elder brother, with his young brother, Levi Mwanawasa, politically joined the Patriotic Front. And Pastor, you know, presidents have little room to move.
Absolutely.
So I was the eyes, ears, legs, and hands of Dr. Chiluba. And so there are many things we did with President Michael Sata to develop a political party, which we found in 2002 with one member of parliament from Luwungu, a gentleman called Emmanuel Musonda Mpankata, who has actually now made the comeback. He was only MP in 2002.
What about Xavier Chishimba?
Xavier Chishimba became later in the cycle of 2006, because I remember the first MP was Emmanuel Mpankata from Lupososhi in Luwungu, and but by 2006, the Patriotic Front had become the largest opposition party, displacing the UPND, and that's why then a group of MPs came, among them Xavier Chishimba in Kasama Central. But one or two that had come in the by-elections in 2003, I remember 2004 in Mufulira. So for a period of 8 years, we worked very well with President Michael Sata. I did a lot of political assignments for the two presidents. President Michael Sata in opposition and President Frederick Chiluba then would trust me to undertake those assignments. In 2008, when President Levi Mwanawasa died and there was a by-election, Dr. Chiluba made a very dramatic decision to support President Rupiah Banda. I personally was aggrieved with that decision, because I had spent, Pastor, a lot of time to help build the Patriotic Front. From one senior MP, now they had, 42 MPs by 2008, and it had spread its wings, and it had built a stronghold of Lusaka, Copper Belt, Northern and Luapula provinces. That time Muchinga didn't exist. And so I was aggrieved by that decision, but Dr. Chiluba said, no, I know both. I know Michael Sata, I know President Rupiah Banda. I'm going for Rupiah Banda. And if you remember, so for 3 years, President Frederick Chiluba then worked with President Rupiah Banda. We abandoned the PF. But even during that difficult period, I played a very instrumental role. Because if the two presidents, former President Dr. Chiluba and President Michael Sata in opposition, clashed in newspapers or on radio, you know how Mr. Sata was, they would mediate over my phone, which whoever had an issue would call me to speak to the other. So even that 3 years between 2008 and 2011, I played a very key role to bring peace between them, even when they were politically diverse. So in 2011, when President Michael Sata won, I was now at Cabinet Office waiting for a deployment, because you remember 2 months before elections, the former president died, in June 2011. And so after we did our audits for the office of the former president is a constitutional office. So you have civil servants like ourselves. It has an allocation of funds annually. You have vehicles, fuel, and like any constitutional office. And you have staff from the police. You have staff from Cabinet Office like myself at the time, guards, laundrymen, and it's a fully fledged office. So we had to do audits and close the office after Dr. Chiluba died. And I was at the office of, I was at Cabinet Office waiting for a redeployment. That is when President Michael Sata then, called me, and he gave me the job of Permanent Secretary for Northern Province. Hence my journey now as a Permanent Secretary. I was privileged to have served as Permanent Secretary in Northern Province, in Eastern Province, in Western Province, at Ministry of Information, your ministry, and at Cabinet Office. We had a political difference with President Michael Sata when I was at Ministry of Information. He was very guarded about the media, and I had given numerous radio licenses in a short period. I'd given 6 TV licenses. I'd given 4 nationwide licenses for radio stations. So I think they gave him a security report and he expressed concern. My dismissal was in public, in cabinet, and it was aired live. But for me in life, I consider those as setbacks.
That's right.
It didn't take long. The president called me again. I think I was fired in November in 2013. And the president called me in December and in January. There were issues that we needed to resolve.
President Sata.
President Sata, yes, he's still president. And he offered me a job as ambassador to Egypt, you know. And he made the calls, he called the permanent secretary. Everyone is alive, like Permanent Secretary George Kanyamula Zulu, who was given the directive that I had been appointed as ambassador to Egypt. But I didn't go. You know the circumstances. The president was unwell during that year, and we lost him towards the end of the year. And we were in campaigns, and I was working with President Lungu. And the job of ambassador did come, but through another president, who was President Edgar Lungu. He appointed me as Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa. I served for a period of 4 years there. Then he transferred me literally on promotion, because being based in Addis Ababa is a senior position where I served as ambassador to Ethiopia, but also as permanent representative to the African Union, permanent representative to the United Nations for Economic Commission for Africa. That has been my personal political journey and profile. I started my life as a banker. I'm a journalist by profession. Ended up as an administrator, who then rose as permanent secretary and served as ambassadors in those 2 key stations in the world. I'm also qualified in various other things. I've done 2 master's programs, one in business administration, an MBA with Edith Cowan University, and I've been doing, while I was in Ethiopia, a peace program, peace studies program, under the University of Addis Ababa. I'll wait for your questions.
That is quite elaborate, and I'm just enjoying how you are unfolding your journey to where you are. And by the special grace of God, if there is one job where people don't go for training for it, is the president. I remember one time President Obama joking, maybe you've seen that clip,
yes,
where Donald Trump attended, and President Obama said, Donald, you cannot be president. This job is for serious men. But later on he became president.
I have also learned the hard way. I tell my colleagues as a campaign strategist, because I've been involved in national campaigns for some time now, from 2006. In 2001, I was doing consulting for non-governmental organizations, so I was more of an outsider. But the first deep-seated strategic role I played in national campaigns for presidency was in 2006 for Patriotic Front, where KBF and all of us others, Waliangandu, not the Minister of Finances, another Walianga and others, we provided strategic support in 2008. I've always cautioned people that say he can't be president. They say, no, Mwamba can't be president. I said, but you said the same thing about Michael Sata. You said the same thing about Levi Mwanawasa. You said the same thing about Edgar Lungu. You said the same thing about Hakainde Hichilema. The issues of being president, I think this is God's own secret. Don't rule out anyone. Don't underestimate anyone. Don't insult anyone over the presidency, because it is very difficult for you to swallow your words when the person you said can't be president becomes president.
I'm telling you. Now, looking at political leadership, before I come to the PF, of the presidents, we can't talk about President HH. He's just 1 year in office, and I'm sure he needs time to see, the nation needs time to see his style of leadership, what he's doing. But President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the former presidents who have died, may their souls rest in peace. Who among these inspired you or motivated you?
It's a very difficult question, Pastor. Because like I said, as a student of politics, I'm an admirer of all of them. They are very unique attributes. They have special, they had a special purpose in all their times, if you study. Look, I don't see if we could have any other presidents than Dr. Kaunda at the time. The tenors in the region, the difficulties we faced at the time, the global view where there is a polarized world, the East and West. We needed a president with the temperament of Dr. Kaunda. He was a unifier. You know, we are 72 tribes, and we are various nations that have formed what we call Zambia. And it truly needed a man of Dr. Kaunda's disposition to unite us, to prepare us to then face the region and the world. A man that sacrificed our own economy to ensure that the rest of the region is liberated. The region got independence on the back, on the back of Zambia. We hosted these liberation movements in Lusaka, whether it was the ANC of South Africa, whether it was SWAPO of Namibia, whether it was Frelimo of Mozambique, whether it was MPLA of Angola and UNITA.
So it took a special president.
It took a president like Dr. Kaunda.
And Chiluba?
For Dr. Chiluba, is a man I admire so much as memoirs I'm yet to write, because this is a man who was like my university, because for 10 years I sat under his feet. For 10 years. And he explained his life, he explained his love for God, he explained his challenges. But on the political front, he made the economy as we know it, because Dr. Kaunda's economic philosophy was from the far left. State-owned enterprises, up to 80% running this economy, literally no private sector. And Dr. Chiluba came and did a liberal economy where the private sector then drives the economy. It required a balance. He found a huge debt of $7 billion accumulated for various reasons. And he helped us in those difficult stages. But he's the first one that opened the mindset of Zambians that you don't have to work until you are 55. You can actually be an entrepreneur, you can be a businessman even at 21. it took our parents, our parents, a long time to have a TV, a long time to have a car. But these children are having a car at the age of 21.
Absolutely.
They have TVs. Yes. So that mindset that you didn't need to work for 55 years, that there are other opportunities other than what is provided for an employment. I think the mindset comes from the economic philosophy of Dr. Chiluba.
And President Mwanawasa, what did you pick?
I loved his anti-corruption drive. He was a man that brought fear to public resources, because for the first time, in case the other president looked like they were casual with public resources, President Mwanawasa brought that sense that public resources ought to be respected, ought to be treated well, not to be looted, not to be plundered. I'm not justifying that President Chiluba was guilty, but it shows the qualities of President Mwanawasa. He had served as vice president of the party. He resigned citing acts of corruption. He came back, 6-7 years later as president and still championed the cause of fight against corruption. So he was unique in that role.
And the President Banda?
President Rupia Banda, an affable man, a consummate diplomat, a man you fall in love as soon as you meet him. And he was a president people say the country was unfair to. He only served 3 years, and the economy was best under President Rupia Banda in over a period of 10 years. He had reserves of $4.5 billion. Inflation rate was at single digit. Enterprises were thriving, and he was building schools, hospitals, roads, and Zambians still voted him out of power. And for us communications experts, we say it's a messaging. Here is a good president with a very good economy, and he still loses an election. So what caused it is a very good case study for, it doesn't matter what you've done, but you still can lose an election.
For political students, that's a very good study.
Yes, it is. It is.
What about President Sata in the 3 years that he ruled this nation?
Oh, now, President Sata has unique qualities. He's revolutionary in nature. He's dogged in what he wants. This is a man that fought for 10 years. He never gave up. We are just 1 year in opposition as a Patriotic Front, and you see our challenges. But look at President Michael Sata. For 10 years, he fought, he never gave up. Every time he lost an election, the following day, he held a press conference. The third day, he was thanking people that had voted for him, and he was holding public rallies, and he was outside the whole country, yes. He was on radio station. He was a one-man media machinery and campaign machinery. I admire him for those stern qualities. But there's something also about his economic policies that I admire. Despite the economy doing very well, we had not invested in public infrastructure for over 30 years. And it was beginning to show. All our trunk roads from Lusaka to the provinces were dilapidated. Some are still dilapidated. The economy had grown from population of 3, 4, 5 million. Now we are, at the time President Sata was president, around 14, 15 million. And the challenges of the country were quite immense. And he saw infrastructure development as a unique way to bridge the gap against poverty, open the country up for development. He was determined that infrastructure from the provinces reached our neighboring states and also opened the places up to Lusaka. And he was a very decisive president. I've never seen a president that is decisive. You give him a story, he's decided, he acts on it.
Absolutely.
And I'm one of those that took development projects, and within a week they were beginning, the implementation began. He was very pragmatic in nature. He understood the bureaucracy around civil service. He knew the challenges that the civil service is permanent. It sees presidents come and go. So they are a bit relaxed. So he knew how to overcome the challenges to ensure him as president.
And I think in the history of our nation, he was the longest serving MP, Member of Parliament.
Oh, yes, because
that experience he had also
helped him, yes. He had been a governor under UNIP, he had been Minister of State. Then he served as a minister under Dr. Chiluba as Minister of Health, Minister of Labor, and then he was given that minister without portfolio when he became National Secretary to bridge the divide between the political party and government, because there's always that confusion that arises where the party feels that it is behind and that the party's programs are not being implemented. So, and then he had served so much. So many places. That's why he knew all the corners. He knew how to overcome those challenges.
Just when he died, I think at the funeral of President Sata, one RDA man, director, said to me, Pastor, we have lost a man who knew the nation. They would sit in State House and they are planning the roads. Then he's telling RDA that uyu musebote tufume hapa ufuilo kupita hapa na kufika hapa mupepi ni hapa.
And I have a unique story there.
He knew the Zambia like the palm of his hand.
Yes. You know, a friend of mine, Charles Spanje, who was permanent secretary for Muchinga, when I served as permanent secretary for Northern Province, one of the critical assignments I had was to divide Muchinga out of Northern Province. So I had to liaise with traditional leaders, civic and engineers, to ensure that the division of Muchinga didn't cause confusion or disaffection, especially among people, among chiefdoms. So Spanje became the new permanent secretary, and we forged our hands together to finish that process which I had started. But we took the program, me and Spanje, to the president of Link Zambia. I'll tell you a brief story. There was a by-election in Chama North just early on in 2011 and 2012. And President Michael Sata was very frustrated because when he won elections, he had found a budget that was crafted by actually Dr. Msokotwane, by the MMD. And you know, that cycle, you have to wait for it to pass. And he kept on complaining that I don't have my own programs, these are MMD programs, our people are impatient. So I said, Mr. President, knowing your philosophy, we have a proposal. And he invited us to State House. Me and Charles traveled from Kasama and Chinsari, and we came and visited him at State House. And we presented to him the program. We called it Link Zambia 5,000. And you know how it was. Kalendeni, don't write technical things, Monique just on one A4 page. And we did that. By the end of the day, we had this program. We had new management at Road Development Agency, and he began to work on it. 3 weeks later, he calls us. He called me, and I went to State House, and he showed me the map of Link Zambia. It was no longer Link Zambia 5,000, it was Link Zambia 8,000. Because he said, Mwarisha koyo musebo, Mwarisha koyo musebo, Mwarisha koyo musebo. And you should remember Mr. Sata's first budget, he proposed 24 brand new roads that should be created. Some of them like Mumbwa Kasempa, shortcuts, you know, like from Lukulu to Zambezi. He had unique ways that he wanted the country connected. So that's why we crafted Link Zambia for him, because in his campaigns the entire 10 years, he spoke about roads and he wanted roads done. We could have made the proposal, but you can see that that's a legacy project he really wanted.
And in few words about President Lungu?
President Lungu, well, a very calm man, a president that has lived to be misunderstood. I think with time people will learn who he was. I worked with him especially very closely in 2015, 2016. We credit him, especially for us Christians. Like we do remember Dr. Chiluba for declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation. President Lungu did some good things for the Christian community. The 18th October, the day of national prayer, reconciliation, and I think that's a very important day. And the decision to begin to build the House of National Prayer. I hope that President Hakainde Hichilema will finish those assignments. Those are spiritual assignments for these countries. They are not political projects. Like the declaration of Zambia was as a Christian nation, they are not political assignments.
What good thing would you say about President HH in this one here? I know you are in the opposition. What good thing would you say?
No, let me just describe him like I've described others.
Okay.
He's privileged to head us at the moment. He came on a landslide victory. He has goodwill across Africa, and he has an opportunity to craft a good legacy for him, because when you come on a landslide victory, that means the goodwill of people, the trust of people in you, the hopes in you and aspirations are very high by the people. So do not fall into disappointing the people, because that optimism can quickly turn into impatience. It can quickly turn into fear by the people that you have not delivered what you promised. He is educated. I find him calm. He has transitioned very well from boardroom politics. Remember, he's a corporate leader, to politics, and he's been like President Michael Sata, who was president for 10 years in opposition. He has been an opposition leader for almost 15 years, from 2006, when he quickly took over when President Anderson Mazoka died, and he has grown from a corporate leader to a political leader. Like I said, he has goodwill. Look, he has achieved the IMF program that the Patriotic Front was pursuing. The World Bank has come on board, and they're giving him various concessional loans. It's his chance to squander. It's just his opportunities to fail, because all the stars have aligned for him to be a good leader. The failure will be up to him.
Okay. Let's go back to leadership, Ambassador Mwamba. The PF. I was in South Africa, apparently. I was just seeing that there are 86 or 80 presidential candidates. The Bible says a house divided cannot stand. Now I'm speaking as a pastor. Why 8 ambitious leaders?
Well, to begin with, the party is a democratic party. Let's trace back. When the Patriotic Front lost elections, I think President Edgar Lungu announced that he will be stepping back. I think he will assume the position of a statesman, and in due course he will hand over to whoever will be elected by the General Conference, because those are the prescripts of our Constitution. In the interim, he appointed Honorable Given Lubinda as Vice President and made him to act as President, and he also appointed Honorable Nixon Chilangwa as Acting Secretary General. This was preceded by a postmortem report that recommended that the party needed to rebrand, and certain key figures such as the National Chairperson, Secretary General of the party, and others needed to resign. And upon those recommendations, those resignations were done. Remember, Honorable Davis Mwila stepped down, Abakalamba Basami Mukupa stepped down, and our former Vice President, Honorable Inonge Wina, for her it was just a voluntary decision that she made. So however, we have the new leadership, and we are steering the party to reorganization, rebuilding, and rebranding. And the Central Committee then began the process to prepare for the conference. The conference should have taken place last year, but for various reasons it was pushed to December, and a few the other month it was pushed to March 2023. So we're supposed to have a general conference in March 2023, and we said we'll open up nominations from 1st September to October 31st. This decision was announced on August 12th. And so that's what happened. We called for nominations, and the day was proceeding to come to an end. That is why you saw all of us went to file on 30th October. The indication that maybe the period for opening up nominations to the actual conference is very far. Maybe we should bridge the gap. Maybe we should close nominations in January. There are those debates. But essentially, the Central Committee has not reviewed the earlier decision. And so when the deadline was coming on 30th October, 8 of us went to file. So there is...
Is there an understanding, Ambassador, that if 7 lose, are you going to work together?
So this is what we are...
There will be now, I can't save Ambassador Mwamba, he's too young. I can't save this one, I'm forming my own political party. Do you envisage such thing?
All those potential dangers and risks that face us. So the party leadership will first take our names to the Central Committee for discussion, and then guidelines will be issued, and I think all the 8 presidential candidates will be called, where we craft out rules of engagement, because the party is bigger than all of us. The Patriotic Front is bigger than Emmanuel Mwamba. It's bigger than Brian Mundubile. It's bigger than Awakalambalandiwa GBM. It's bigger than Mutotwe Kafwaya. It's bigger than Honorable Mao Sampa. It's bigger than Grefford Monde. It's bigger than all of us, the 8. And in whatever we do, even when we sell our candidature, I think we should be building and promoting the party, preparing it to win elections in 2026.
Ambassador, especially after Dr. Kaunda stepping out from State House and President Chiluba leaving State House, where we are going, I've seen that it has become free for all. Even somebody just from Chiluba and Moko wants to lead us. Somebody who has never even had the prefect doesn't know what leadership is all about. Everyone seems to be, I'll be president, I'll be president. Why? After you answer this, because I want to bring something why we fail as Africa.
Yeah, true. So this is pitfalls of democracy. I remember the discussion that was being held by at Oxford University, and where this professor from China said, for example, Donald Trump cannot make it as president in China, because in China they emphasize on education. You should run a state as governor or as premier of that state, and one state sometimes has 200 million people, and the GDP of that is several, countries. They're big, put together. So by the time you are seeing the top 6 in China, these are refined people. A leader doesn't just emerge from anywhere. But for democracy, unfortunately, no. You might just be a charismatic speaker. You might just have a lot of money to buy your way on political supporters. The parameters are a bit lower. And sometimes where we do not have enough education, like in the West, where everyone is educated and you might be judged more on your qualities of a leader than on what you bring. So sometimes our people fall prey to those that want to buy their way into leadership. So unfortunately, it's something that comes with the democracy we are practicing. If you can vote, you can be voted for. That's a principle in democracy. So anyone is considered a leader. If they can vote for you, they are also qualified to also be voted for. But I pray that the wisdom of our people does rise at a critical time, and when they choose leaders that are suitable to, take us to that destination we are looking for.
I asked that question, Ambassador, because I am a firm believer of the Bible. I'm privileged to be part of Cabinet, and I'm learning how to interview ambassadors, how to interview different people. But being a firm believer of the Word of God, there is something that I've seen lacking in African leaders, and that is the vision. The Bible says, where there is no vision, people perish. Doesn't matter at what level. For example, my wife and I, Bishop, we are not just there. I went into Bible college in 1982. This is 40 years, if we can put facts together. 40 years. And the Cabinet is just 6 years. That is 6 years in ministry. And this church, building it, it's just 12 years ago. That is 30 years. 12 years ago, you subtract from 40. But before then, Ambassador, I had the privilege of meeting Honorable V.C. Bird, the first Prime Minister of Antigua. When I preached there, he gave me an offer to stay in Antigua, be given land by the head of state, and build a church. But because of the vision which is making us sit here today, I turned that down. That offer was so good. The following time again, we go with my wife. We are given a church where the salary, I'm talking about in 1992, we are given a church where I was going to be getting $10,000 US as my salary. My wife, she was going to be put on allowance, a big house. One of the ladies and the leaders called my wife and said, convince your husband to come and live here. Now at that time, I must say, Ambassador, I wasn't even getting 400 in Zambia. Yes. You are being told 10,000, your wife about 5,000. The school children, my children were going to go to top schools where ambassadors' children were going. I turned that down to come back to 400 kwacha. Why? Because of the vision. I still believe that before God takes me to heaven, I'll be part of a better change for Zambia. Bringing the status of this country to another level. I may not be a president, I may not be PS, I may not be in your ranks, but God has a special place in his heart for my wife and I to be part of the bigger Zambia. Now I've given you that in a nutshell as a testimony. I know where I'm coming from, and I know where I'm going. So these political ambitions are irrelevant to me, because that's not part of my assignment. Now, as political leaders, somebody has never even built a house. Somebody probably has divorced even 5 times, seeking the highest office in the land. Why so?
I hold myself as an example. I am visionary in nature. I'm pragmatic in approach. I've been privileged to have this huge wealth of experience for my age. I don't know anyone else who's gone through what I've gone at my age. And I have demonstrated wherever I've worked. I'll give you an example. I walk into Northern Province as permanent secretary, and I call for the plans for Northern Province and the economic status. Of course, is real agriculture based. And one thing stands out immediately. A company has been closed, which was a mass private employer, Kateshi, Northern Coffee. And I said, why has it been closed? I begin to call for reports for issues around it, and I discover that there's an investor who obtained money on the assets of Northern Coffee, over $11 million, and drained, and the company had been closed for over 5 years. And I begin to make calls. How can we revive this company? Within 3 months, we had revived that company. We had obtained an international investor. Olam from Singapore. We had advertised in South Africa, in London, and a bidder came from, there were 2-3 bidders, but here is an agricultural commodity company well respected across the world. They came, and now Northern Coffee is the largest private employer in Northern Province. It has over 2,000 employees at peak season, and it has over 3,650. So would you say, were there PSs before I went there? What were they doing for 5 years? Here is this company that is closed. So I'm a bit detailed to that effect. I want to transform an area, because I believe that when God gives you an opportunity, there's something He wants you to do for people. That office is not for you to engage in corruption, to make money for you and your family, or to employ your relatives. As soon as you recognize that amongst all that are eligible for that position, there are more people that are more qualified, more educated, more even better suited for that job than you. And when you have that recognition, then you save in the manner that I save. Because I run an open door policy. It doesn't matter who you are. When you come and I'm free, I'll see you. And that's what people in the provinces I saved will remember me by. I did the same when I went to Western Province, a beautiful place, beautiful area. And one of the dead projects was the cashew project. Dr. Kaunda had planted these cashews in the 1975. And the trees had blossomed, and the cashew just goes to waste. And I was alerted to the international price of cashew, which cost over $10,000 per ton, far higher than copper. And here it was just wasting. So I began to revive that project, called experts, because you learn that in the region, Mozambique does very well and it exports its cashew to Brazil. And I called these 2 experts who came to Mongu, and we were very shocked that they had actually learned how to grow cashew in Zambia. They even gave us a better variety, because the old trees are big. They take 7 to 9 years to grow, but there are now newer species that do 3 to 5 years. And we began now together, and thank God for the Honorable Chikwanda, who was Minister of Finance, and I shared the vision, and he was developmental in nature. He had been Minister of Finance before, so he understood some of those old projects from Dr. Kaunda. And he said, no, let me do any project proposal. Today, Mongu and Western Province received $50 million from the Africa Development Bank to revive the cashew nut industry. And then you would ask, was there no PS before I saved? Of course they were there. When I came to Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Services, you saw how transformational I was. Because I didn't think that. After living in rural areas, I understood the importance of radio. Radio is the only bridge between the people and their communities. And if the community doesn't have a radio, warachula sana, you know, and that's why I quickly gave as many licenses to those radio stations as possible, because I knew that communities must have a forum where they can discuss, and the forum where government then can communicate its programs, especially its water and sanitation projects, its health programs, and agriculture, especially in the rural areas. Issues of agriculture are very important. So I do not come to leadership with empty hands. For me, I come to leadership recognizing that I'm just but a mere vessel to help transform this country.
You are a young and vibrant leader, I must say, and I admire your courage and the things that you do. And
thank you very much.
I'm grateful. What is this story that people say you are from Tanzania? Are you from Tanzania? Is it a complexion or is it? Because before you declared your intent to say one day you'll be a leader, nobody talked about Dar es Salaam as your birthplace.
No, Pastor, I have seen attacks from one of the rogue media called Cosway. It's run by our political opponents. It's a very vile media organization. It has actually causes strife and divisions in this country. And I have failed to give dignity to those attacks. I struggled, do I answer these attacks, you know? But let's just walk back. To be a civil servant, you go through scrutiny. To be a banker, as a banker saved, over 7 years in Zambia National Commercial Bank. And as young people, we go to school, we have classmates, schoolmates, you have your school association, you have neighbors you grew with. To be permanent secretary, to be ambassador, there is huge scrutiny that is done on your life. Who are you? Where are you from? Who are you married to? Who are your children? Who are your parents? I have passed those tests several times. I suffered the worst attacks. I've always talked about it when I saved Dr. Chiluba, because there was a very hostile climate against Dr. Chiluba, and I was the official spokesperson. And people didn't want Dr. Chiluba to speak, and Dr. Chiluba's mouth was myself. I suffered attacks, indignity, I was searched, my life was put all upside down. You know, when you are fighting the state, if there was anything like that, it could have been revealed then. I consider these attacks as malicious, to derail me, because I'm a clean leader. I'm an incorruptible leader. I have saved, you've never had even a whiff of corruption allegations against me, even a whiff of improper misconduct. They've looked, they've tried. I don't know where this story is coming from, I don't understand it, but I refuse to give it dignity because it's not true. And maybe it's very difficult to lie about who we are.
But where are you from, Ambassador?
Bemba, my mother is from Chinsali, my father is from Kasama, I have siblings, I have relatives that you can point to. I am Bemba, and you know, I'm Emmanuel Mwamba's. You see, what you get is what you see.
I asked this because rumors flying everywhere. I know that the moment you start saying, I want to be president, such things, they happen, especially to you leaders. That said, Ambassador, I want to ask a personal question, which is, don't look at it from the umbrella of a political party. One of the challenges that we have also is good people like you, people with a vision, who are charismatic. Once you are in this party, and there is a UPND here, these animals called the political parties, they are dividing Zambia. If you were to be asked by President HH to say, because he's the president of all the political parties, come and save here, would you refuse?
When I was serving and when I was recalled, there were intimation that maybe, there could be possible appointment for me by President Hakainde Hichilema. I declined to those colleagues that were sent to speak to me for one simple reason. I began pursuing my political path in 2011. I began to look at standing in Kasama, and 2015 I thought my attempts were ripe and I wanted to pursue. This is after my elder brother GBM had resigned from PF, and there was an impending by-election. So I went in to campaign and I was preparing to stand there. But President Edgar Lungu said, no, you are not doing your politics. I've appointed you as Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa. Go and work. And I was advised by our leaders that wakateka ngawakupele nchito teakukana. So I postponed it. There was a general election due in 2016. Again, I went to President Lungu and I said I want to stand. In fact, I wanted to stand now in Matero. My dear brother Mao Sampa had resigned and had formed his political party. And I thought that was a good opening, because when I came in Lusaka from Wansha, I settled in Matero, in Lilanga, and later in my life as a banker, I own a property there. So I thought I could stand in Matero. Again, President Lungu says, you have a job and you're doing very well as an ambassador. Go and work in South Africa. In 2021, Pastor, I still came back. No one to Akwalesa. I think in a politician. I actually even tendered my resignation, delivered it to President Edgar Lungu, and he still declined. You are doing a good job in Ethiopia. You are representing this country very well. They like you at the African Union. You are helping shape policies in Africa. Why do you want to join politics? So my heart has been in politics, because I think that the way we do our politics is not correct. Our politics are hostile. Our politics is the insults and the malice, the violence has taken over. And what has suffered is development and development debate about this country, what we should do. And our leaders are forced to discuss things that don't build this country. The rise in tribalism, the rise in corruption, the rise in all these vices is the politics are not being done properly. My quest has been that I come to politics and bring a brand new type of politics. Politics based on integrity, politics based on national issues and national debate, politics that build all of us. That I should look at President Hakainde Hichilema as my enemy. He's not my enemy. He could be my political adversary, but he's not my enemy. And therefore, I will not reduce myself to destroying him or his life or his family. I'll be looking at a debate that should benefit our people. For me, that is why I'm in politics. I want to offer myself and my service. If you've seen in my debate, I'm discussing issues. What can we do with Indeni? What can we do with Tazama? Why is our rail infrastructure dead? How can we revive policies that benefit our people? Why do we allow foreign companies benefit from our resources and put very little? Why do we leave our workers stranded and now they are casual workers? I want us to debate those issues, which will then inform policies that benefit our country. At the moment, it's not possible. When I post a joke on my page, I will have even 500 comments. But when I post a detailed proposal of how we can come out of this country, I will have 20 comments. So you can see where we've taken the debate. jokes and things that are not serious take over debate. Things that should help build this country are relegated, are not even read. And sometimes when you do a detailed piece on how we can make this country better, the comments will be, it's too long. So who do you think will read this thing? So if you haven't read this comment, raise your hand. I shudder when I see that, for example, on social media. And our politicians are falling into those pitfalls. So they discuss what is irrelevant, what is petty. When you insult, you become a hero quickly. When you raise issues, you appear irrelevant. So for me, I'm not giving up, but I'm thinking that there's a new type of politics for our country. I can use my experience, I can use my wise counsel to the many presidents that I have worked with, the local and international experience, and I have seen countries advance, that this can be done in Zambia.
So, would you say that if President Lungu, President HH called you, you'd help him save the nation?
I would help him in the manner I am helping him. I'm in opposition, and I think, like I'm saying, we're not enemies, we're adversaries, but for the benefit of our country. I bring proposals. When President Hakainde Hichilema succeeds, our people succeed. If he fails, I will put up a good proposal for the benefit of our country. In the past, I chose a job over the decision to pursue this politics. I failed to tell President Lungu that, no, sir, my heart is in politics. Thank you, the job is nice, the job is good, but no, thank you, let me pursue this. There are issues you can only change at certain levels. And when I said as permanent secretary, there are things that I could only change. There are things that my minister could also change. There are things that collectively as cabinet can change. There are things that a president can change. So although you are serving in your own capacity, but the requirement for this country, which requires literally a revolutionary, transformational change, it requires a leader with such a disposition, who understands it, then who can make these proposals. So thank you to President Hakainde Hichilema. If we were to offer him a job, that would be my answer. Sir, there's a role I'm playing as an opposition leader. Let's work together. Let's see how we can achieve. If you fail, I am your substitute. If you succeed, you make my work difficult.
I have a friend in Uganda, Bwanika, and for many years he was in the opposition. Now, as a president, now the past elections, he chose to begin as an MP. Now he's a member of parliament. But when it comes to preaching our church, he says, Pastor Chilu, I'm not a member of an opposition, because I introduced him as such. A member of opposition in Uganda. Humbly he comes to pick the microphone, he says, Pastor, I'm not a member of opposition. I'm an alternative government.
Maybe I should begin to call myself that. That's very inspiring. True. And that's what I want Zambians to look at our politics, that our politics should not be this hostile and adversarial in nature.
But I've seen also, Ambassador, you mentioned the fact that when you bring something developmental, there are few comments. When you crack a joke, there are more things that come. You know, in our media industry, providing news to the nation and all, I've just come to discover that actually stories that make headlines nearly
So it tells us the state of the country. We have to do more in education. And also, maybe our people are not taking us seriously as politicians. They think that we don't live up to our words, we promise more, do something else. Politicians after politicians disappoint our people. So sometimes they also think they shouldn't take these issues seriously. But I always challenge our people, where do you think leaders will come from? The leaders will come from amongst ourselves. Who do you think will change this country? It is collectively ourselves. If you do not want to participate in politics, who do you think will change for you? The very one you call Kaponya will become your leader because you stayed away from the process. I'm encouraged that the young people in this last election even decided to swear the elections. They participated fully, even changed the pendulum of who should win elections. That's very encouraging for me. But I want them to stay on the debate that way. They'll force us to say, here you are lying, sir. Here this can't work. I'm an engineer, Ambassador, what you propose is good, but I think it can work better this way. We want our young people engaged in politics. Until the country can be changed by one person alone or by one president alone. The system requires that we have everyone hands-on and hands-on deck.
Ambassador, one of the things that I want, and I've been passionate about this, the working collectively, both the alternative governments and the ruling government. How possible is that? Listen, we've just got one Zambia. You see, I've said this before. Government after government, President Chiluba would not go to State House because of Akaunda. When Vasata, who was in the opposition, I don't know, the MMD, after they left, the UPND could not go to State House. Even the PF Navena could not go to State House. It took the sickness of President Sata to be flown by Manawasa. And after he survived, he said, now you are my friend. When the UPND was in opposition, they would not go to State House and work together. Now that you are in the opposition, UPND is feeling what they never felt. They are inviting you, you are also refusing to go to State House. Why is it so?
So like I said, our politics are extremely hostile, where we are regarding each other as enemies, malicious in nature. The adversarial type of politics, like I said, is very hostile, but doesn't provide for healing. Some blame it on the type of multi-party democracy because it fosters this competition where you fight for this space. But I think the love for this country must be higher than our partisan interest. I've always said we have concerns with the economic policies of President Hakainde Hichilema. The manner in which, for example, he seems to be promoting foreign interests, the presence of AFRICOM, a U.S. combatant unit from the U.S. to have an office in Zambia. We have some concerns. Fertilizer has not been distributed. This is November, and we have rains across the country, and base of fertilizer has not arrived. Our people are planting. We have various concerns, and the newspapers and the media is part of an area and space we can air our grievances. But there is no harm in the president in a quarter, cause all opposition, and we meet at Mulungushi. What are your concerns? He listens to us. He also tells us his concerns about the opposition and the way we are doing our politics. There is no harm in calling for an economic endeavor for us to achieve consensus on some of these issues. I have always promoted this feeling even to the presidents that I've advised in the past. That consensus in the nation makes it easier for you. You go to sleep very well because you know that what you are doing already has support from the opposition. By the time you are taking, for example, a constitutional amendment in Parliament, it will have consensus. But you can't take a constitutional amendment in this environment into that Parliament we reject it as the opposition. Because we see malice, you know, there are a lot of unresolved issues you are not attending to. We feel the opposition is being victimized, you know, political violence is back, that our people are arrested unnecessarily, without us meeting and having an honest discussion with the ruling party. The adversarial and hostile feelings between the ruling party and opposition continues. And I pray that one day there will be a new type of politics where we can sit and say, guys, here we agree. These are national matters. National events can we all attend. It's not about me as president. It's not about my party. It's about our nation. I'm honoring heroes. Prior to the investiture ceremony, I want to see a letter written to our political leaders. Who do you think can be honored? That then the list is compiled together with what cabinet compiles. Who feel part of the process. Who will not feel you are favoring the stone throwers that supported you. Who think that you are honoring people that truly deserve honor in this country. So there are many things, Pastor, and I agree with you, that we have to do. But the polarization created, that's why there's violence. Violence comes from the polarization at the top. If our supporters feel aggrieved that the leaders are not treated well, when our juniors and our ordinary people meet, they'll clash and fight. If they see us meet and have a cup of tea together, they'll feel embarrassed to fight.
Absolutely.
They will say, why are you fighting? You know. So it is to the benefit of this country that we conduct different type of politics than the ones currently going on.
What would you say about mine concessions? Is it justified? Is it the right move that we should exempt these people making money from our country and give them concessions? No.
The other day, I put on my Facebook, there's a group called CT Group from UK, is owned by a Tory, a member of one of the parties there. And there is a special report that was published by the Guardian newspaper, a very respected newspaper.
The London newspaper?
Yeah, the London newspaper, yes. Which was founded in 1818, it's over 200 years old newspaper, so you can't doubt its integrity.
It has a lot of credibility.
It has.
Yeah.
And it has published a report that this group, City Group, was hired to influence elections in the DRC and in Zambia, and they have been here in Zambia since 2011. And they said they were being paid by a group, a Canadian mining firm. So I expressed concern. In Zambia, we have two Canadian firms, First Quantum and Barrick Gold, those that own Kansanshi, Lumwana in Northwestern Province. And as soon as President Hakainde Hichilema won elections, his Minister of Finance immediately implemented these tax concessions for the mining groups. So when I saw that report published in the Guardian newspaper, I expressed concern and I called for formal investigations. So which Canadian mining house paid for this City Group to come and influence our elections?
In Zambia.
In Zambia. Because Zambians are happy that they voted. Zambians are happy that their will was expressed through the ballot. Zambians are happy, for example, that some Zambians are happy that they changed governments. So who is this in London who says he actually determined the outcome of our elections? That's a very serious matter. So you will have these international interferences to come and sway our policies in this country, where then you have policies that don't benefit our country. We are the largest producer of emerald. How much do we benefit from it? The second largest producer of emerald in the world. And some of the finds there, you've seen some of the special stones that have been found at Kagem that have not been found anywhere else in the world. The largest stone, the largest cluster of stones. But what do Zambians benefit? Konkola copper mines, Vedanta wants to come there. I have concerns. They ran the mine for 20 years. Why are we giving them a second chance? And in the 20 years they ran the mine, they didn't pay taxes because they were declaring losses. Of course, they paid the employees. Of course, they had social corporate responsibilities, but they were declaring losses. Why are you allowing them back? And Pastor, Zambians sometimes don't know that Konkola can provide the largest copper mine literally in the world. Konkola Deep, a project we have not exploited, has reserves, non-reserves of $200 billion. So why do you want to give this mine away, which has these reserves? Of course, it requires further investment to exploit that copper because it sits far, far deep underground. It's one of the wettest mines in the world, and you require special technology and special investment. But KCM is extremely valuable. It might appear like it's vanquished or doesn't have, the assets are depreciated. They are not. Why don't we have proper shareholding in the mines that we have in Northwestern Province? Why are they owned almost totally private? Why doesn't Zambia have a stakeholder stake in those mines? You cannot have a large-scale mine in any country and you don't have your participation at shareholding value where you share the profits. You need some of those decisions. So the concessions inekanabe sandakana pantundanda tikawewe ndai wafawe kopa kumbi wala isanga kui tetwa isange. It's not possible. They will come. In the DRC, it's the most unstable country in Africa. There are wars running. In the last 10 years, the investors have developed the copper mines and cobalt mines in the DRC. It has become the largest producer of copper in Africa, the DRC, under conditions that are risky and at war. What about a country like Zambia that is peaceful, stable, that has never been to war, that has disciplined staff, they rarely go on strike, even when we don't treat them well? How can we not have an investor? Why do you need to throw all these concessions for them? So I think that those decisions are unfair. They don't benefit our country. They don't benefit our workers. And we are exploiting a diminished resource because one day that copper will finish.
Absolutely.
So you need to get as much as possible while you have it.
What you have said, Ambassador, one of my friends said that, you know what, even if Zambia introduced the taxes on these mine owners, they will still come.
Of course.
Because the money they get is too much.
Yes.
You know, they can't abandon, but they will threaten you, no, we'll pull out, we'll do what, so that you don't introduce the tax. And I've always said this, when Margaret Mwanakatwe, as the finance minister, wanted to remove the VAT and put sales tax, that brought confusion. And I can tell you, Ambassador, one American told me, Pastor, it is very hard, this woman won't succeed to introduce sales tax because in Africa, VAT is what you go by because you refund this one, you refund that. Money is just going back to the same people. But the moment you introduce the tax, so the way he explained it, sales tax, he said, give your nation 2 years. It will be like Dubai. Your kwacha will strengthen. But the international big players out there,
will be annoyed with
they will fight from State House, Minister of Finance to down there why you should not introduce the tax. And also now there are concessions. It's only in Africa. America doesn't give concessions.
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, there have been various studies that show that because of these tax concessions and the tax dodging schemes by these corporates, including the mine houses, Zambia loses $3 billion a year. We lose that money. So if we stopped all those loopholes and implemented policies that benefit this country, that are pro-nationalist in nature, you will find that we may not even need the IMF because we'll have sufficient resources, raised domestic revenue from our own resources to develop our country. But we have this mindset, and it's a complex structure of lobbies. There's corruption, there's economic theories that just deprive us from benefiting from our own resources. Indonesia is one good example. They have iron ore, and they've been mining it for years. One brave minister said, no more export of iron as a raw material. Whoever is interested in this iron must put up an industry to turn it into steel. We will not export iron as raw. Within 2 years, they've made billions they've never made in the last 50 years. And those industries that were threatening, that reported them to the World Trade Organization, that said they were flouting international trade rules, the same industries came and set up in Indonesia, and are now turning steel. And now Indonesia is one of the largest exporter of steel just in the last 3 years. It can be done if you're not listening to the naysayers. Copper is not everywhere. Cobalt is not everywhere. Emeralds are not everywhere. We are unique in nature. Saudi Arabia has oil. Other people have other things. We have copper, we have cobalt, we have these unique gemstones. We have gold, for heaven's sake.
And we have this stone, manganese.
Yeah, we have manganese, we have sugarite, we have all sorts of minerals that we are allowing. We are making billionaires who live in Canada, Australia, UK, Hong Kong, Senegal, and our people continue to languish in poverty.
And Ambassador, last week we drove to Lubumbashi, Lubumbashi there. Now, as we were going, I noticed that there are more trucks than cars on the road. Yeah. My goodness. And
the road is treacherous. You see now how quickly it gets destroyed.
You can't even go fast because in some parts it's like there are some stretches where they say planned for accidents. When you are going fast, you go like this.
Yes,
I'm telling you. But we took a simple study. Ambassador, the passenger was with Professor, pressed the timer, 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we saw 26 trucks coming from the other side. In 5 minutes. Not including those that were following us or the ones we overtook. Just the ones in 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, he said, now, Pastor, you multiply 26 trucks by these minutes, and they kept on coming. Why are you not constructing your roads? If one truck is 500 kwacha. And we discovered that actually about 5,000 trucks, they go through either the toll gates, northern province, southern province, per day. Where does that money go to? And like we are saying, bottom line, we pray that the leadership of President Hakainde will look into that. These people, they don't deserve concessions.
No, not at all.
Anything.
And the issue,
are the ones who
the issue brought of what's happening on the road. First of all, up to 60-70% of that traffic should be on rail. It shouldn't be on our roads. We move that onto our rail by rehabilitating our rail system, making it efficient, because our road capacity cannot, even if you make them concrete, that type of load should be moved to rail. That's where it should be. Secondly, we need to widen our roads, make proper investment in them. Told them, yes, there are attempts to make them into PPPs, as the Minister of Infrastructure is proposing. But these are trunk roads. And on the road you were, my fear has always been that all these South African road trucks are going to Congo. What are they taking to Congo? So they're taking food, meal, cereals, everything that Zambia can provide is coming from South Africa and Namibia. Why can't we be the breadbasket for the DRC? Why are we missing this opportunity where we allow our roads to be damaged by things we ourselves can export? I've always said, why do we plan, as we even talk about fertilizer, plan for 18 million people? Why don't we plan for the 400 million people around us? You know, SADC region has 400 million people. Why don't we grow food for the 400 million people around us? Why are we even restricting who should get fertilizer? I would put even civil servants. Ngaleri backyard yakampela kwa Masaka, how to export ku Congo na ku Angola. Even civil servants will be on the FISIP program. Anyone who can find a kalima, kumupela fertilizer, if you are looking at the larger picture, that can we be a breadbasket for Southern Africa? Can we be a breadbasket for Africa? You bring in commercial farming. You open up these areas with good roads, good feeder roads where our people are. But also, you know, for many schemes, outgrower schemes, where you allow, you know, these lots of land that we've said can be developed as, you know, farming estates. There's something that we can do to revolutionize our agricultural sector. But we like to think small. We even say, no, PF tawapoke fertilizer. For me, I would want to say, instead of removing people from even the fertilizer scheme, include them as many as possible, because you'll have huge bumper harvests for your export. Develop your sheds, warehouses and storage facilities, use access roads, and that every year, with this climate we have, despite climate change, Zambia is still well, you know, endowed, and we can be a big exporter to Africa.
As we open the lines, my director didn't even put the lines there, my goodness. Okay. As we open the lines, Ambassador, President Michael Chilufya Sata, I asked him a question in 2004, I think, 2003, somewhere there, why he wanted to be president. He said, as governor, I proved my worth. As Minister of Health, I proved my worth. Wherever I've been put, I've proved my worth.
Yeah.
Then he said to me, Pastor Chilowa, as a minister, you cannot make a decision, even if it's right, even if it's going to benefit the nation. The buck stops at the president. If he doesn't like it, so he says, I want to make the decisions that will suit Zambia. Is that also the same policy that you have, that when you're a minister, you can't drive the agenda, but when you become president, you can implement something?
A mix of both. First of all, I recognize that leadership is from God. And like I've said, every time I've been given an opportunity of service, I've just served God's people, opened my doors and ensured that I transformed lives of people. For me, it's about people. Secondly, my interaction with various heads of states and with various governments, especially at policy level, there are some things that I can change, and there are some things that I can't change. And the opportunity that God has given me, and you know, to serve in the various capacities I have served, I do not think that is far from it, even the assignment of presidents. For me, it's about service and serving our people better. Providing.
My director put the phone numbers to be scrolling there. I will appreciate just the phone numbers. Thank you so much. Yes.
So the position of president for me is not unique to what I have done. It's just about service and leaving a mark for this country, leaving it better than where you left it. Yeah. So I hope and pray that when we are given offices, it's not about ourselves. When we are given offices, it's not about ourselves to enrich ourselves, to make that office for your personal benefit, but it's an opportunity to serve our people. It's an opportunity that our people are given room to grow, are given your office for them to achieve their goals and aspirations.
But
it's not about you.
But you have a vision for something.
Oh yeah, brilliant one, which I've been espousing, that is possible to eliminate corruption, that is possible to save our people than the foreign entities that we are providing. It's possible to provide economic policies that benefit our country, makes it even #1 in Africa than what we've been doing. That is possible, that you cannot have a rich, wealthy country, but a poor people, a poor unemployed people. The two do not match. Zambia is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and why our people are poor doesn't make sense.
As politicians, you always talk about corruption, tribalism, you talk about this, but there are certain things you avoid to campaign over.
Yeah.
And these also, if you ask the Financial Intelligence Center, they are very concerned. Two of the deadly scourges in this nation, one, tax evasion.
Yeah.
Because there are so many business people, including politicians, who avoid tax.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would rather say, oh, I know Minister Musokotwane, Minister, I've ordered a Mac X, please give me Kareta. That kind of tax evasion is contributing to the poverty in this nation. Secondly, money laundering.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tend to think, Ambassador, these brand new vehicles you are seeing being sold at every corner of the road, brand new, and the prices there. For me, I tend to think that is just washing dirty money into the public, because I don't understand how somebody can parade 15 Prados, brand new, and I'm looking for a camera of $300, I can't find it, So tax evasion, which also includes the mines.
Yeah.
They cheat a lot to say we are running at a loss. And let me say this, when we got to Chingola, before Chingola, I think at Kapiri, there was a truck that had overturned. Do you know what it was carrying? It's the first time I saw that. Big, huge bags of copper in dust form. And they are not putting those copper plates or whatever.
They are not processing
bars,
it. They are not processing it.
They are taking them out. And we get into Chingola. Just as you get out of Chingola, that KCM, I saw the trucks with big bags, and there are about 60 trucks in there. I said, this is theft. Which government allows people to just collect copper dust? You go and process it outside.
Yes, because if it's processed here, they'll be forced to declare the amount of gold that is there. Like the copper mines in Northwestern Province, the level of copper deposits in that ore is extremely high as a byproduct. So if it's processed here, they will know the level of cobalt in that dust. We will know the amount of copper. But if it's taken as raw, they just pay some small export fees, like you're exporting amalogafia. But if it is processed here, it will reveal the amount of gold that is there and the amount of tax, therefore, that they should pay.
And who is behind stopping that kind of injustice? Is it the Minister of Finance? Is it the President? Home Affairs? Who allows the mines to behave the way they behave?
Our policies do allow them. We treat them like children. We do not want to beat them when they are wrong. We do not want them to do correct things. And policies, for example, that should allow export, not just of proper raw materials, unprocessed raw material, like what you are talking about, the ore, literally, they don't even process it into copper bars.
No.
That wale monati, ama copper bars, copper, yes, no.
They have stopped.
Yeah, where they are just now taking the actual, what this are in those junta bags.
Yes.
That earns the mines more money. If it is processed in this country, it will reveal, like I said, the amount of copper in there, gold, and then the taxman can value and put slap a tax bill for them to pay.
I think this one, Ambassador, we should all petition the president.
Yeah.
We should all petition the government. Maybe it even started in your leadership as PF. Because me, that's when I saw it. Nobody told me because of this track which overturned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it started in your PF government.
Of course.
You
will remember.
PND,
you remember that President Sata banned it.
Yeah. There
was a famous SI, is it SI 62 and 65, that banned export of literally ore. He banned it.
Emeralds. He stopped that.
Yeah, did it last? It didn't last. Within a year or two, the policies were overturned because the mining groups are very powerful entities. They can use IMF, they can use World Bank, they can use the president, they can use corruption. They use many methods to achieve as much as possible what they desire. But we should have a leadership that's resolute.
So you are saying that when you become president, the mines are too powerful that they will overrule your decisions?
No. Someone even said crudely at Kanshing ngatulefilwa how to handle this copper and gold. Tufineke fe mushidi mpaka tukakwaten tungulushi. A type of leadership that can exploit this property for the benefit of our country. That's how disgusted our people are. They know we can do it as leaders. And they know when we are being used as tools, to benefit foreign entities. It's literally a crime against humanity where we deprive our people of the benefits, maximum benefit for their own natural resources.
Dear Camnet TV viewers, we have few minutes. Of course, we have about 30 minutes for you to call, for you to send us the text. The number to call in the studio is 0968 675 273. The number to call is the one which is just here. This number you will get in the studio, this one, 096 675 273. The one on the middle are for the text messages, and we are ready to hear from you. As we are waiting for the calls, or before I call for the text messages, Ambassador, do you think a national endeavor is in order, where we just say, okay, let's meet in this new stadium? What is it called? Heroes
Stadium.
Heroes Stadium. Opposition, ruling party, with our presidents, with our, not to fight, not to size each other, but let's find the solution to our country. Do you think that national endeavor is in?
I've been calling for a national endeavor, an economic one, to discuss the various economic policies that are suitable for this country. You can call it smaller units where our technocrats from our opposition, from the church, from other NGOs meet with the ruling party and the president and his government, and they hear us out. The concerns you have, the concerns we have. He also then can use the opportunity to explain his policies and where he thinks he's taking this country. The national endeavor is healing in nature. It reduces political temperature in the country. It helps government achieve consensus. For example, if they want to do the PPP project, they want to do some of the difficult things they want to do that will impact this country in a lifetime beyond their own generation. Some things you need to consult. That is a health one. A political one, to deal with the mistrust with courts, with ECZ, is also suitable.
Let's pick up this co-ambassador. Hello, good evening. Good evening. Oh, Yeah. So you said
And the political one, Indaba, where political parties meet to resolve the crisis around political tension. We want to trust ECZ. We want to trust the courts. We want to trust other independent institutions. And if we feel that they are being abused by the state, it's important that we meet and discuss so that there is no longer tension. These are democratic institutions that should serve and benefit our country.
Mr. Director, give us some text messages if they are there. Let's read the text messages so that the people of Zambia can participate while we are waiting for the cause. Text messages. Ambassador Mwamba, you have a good vision of this country. You speak well. Hope God will give you the power to rule our country. This is Kaunda from Mufulira.
Oh, thank you very much.
Evening, Pastor and Mr. Mwamba. Why do politicians fail to admit and accept the wrongs and the failure they commit? Instead, they blame their adversary. What would you say to that?
The first time I came on radio, as soon as I came from Ethiopia, I admitted that there were mistakes that were done by the previous government. My government, there were mistakes, cadreism, issues of corruption, laissez-faire attitude. There were issues that made the voter punish us. You cannot fail to accept your mistakes, because then how will you move forward? How will you then make a journey to repair the relationship you have with Zambians? I apologized for the mistakes that could have been made, but I also, demonstrated that the government meant well. Of course, in every family there will be some black sheep. There were some mistakes that were made, but overall the vision was good. Develop the country, use infrastructure to open up the country and commit development to our people.
Let's speak some more text messages, Mr. Director. Give us, good evening, Ambassador. How would you deal with transfer pricing on the mining companies? TK.
Yes. Now that's a very good one. The technical issues were saying how they evade tax. So they get, for example, you will see that if you look at our export, the bulk of our export go to Switzerland, which is copper. But the copper never arrives in Switzerland. So what the mining companies, for example, Glencore, had done is that it has a subsidiary in Switzerland which buys our copper and sign an agreement, maybe for a period of 3 years, buying copper at $3,000 or $4,000 to its own subsidiary, even when the copper is $9,000. That's called transfer pricing, where you are cheating tax by selling the commodity to your own company abroad, lock the price for 3-4 years, and then pay taxes on that lower tax, but your subsidiary company pays more. So transfer pricing is part of the tax dodging scheme. It's dangerous. We have to avert it. It's one of the reasons Zambians lose up to $3 billion a year in dodging and tax schemes.
As you have said, Ambassador, I didn't know until I got to the UK. One Zambian academician did a research on the mining in this nation.
Yeah.
He actually said, Pastor, the mines there, KCM, it's the same company that sells to this company in London and Switzerland.
Yeah.
It's the same company, like you have 5 companies. They are just buying, then they process, then they sell you back. Same company, and he has got a document which IMF wanted to get from him, a proven fact. So I don't know, you have educated Zambians who are out there, who know how our country is losing out on money. But we are still borrowing the 1.5 billion, which we can raise within 3 months.
Remember, last month I condemned the sale of Mopani to Glencore at $1.5 billion. And I said, look, how much did Glencore buy this mine? Why would they sell it back to us at last year in 2021? It was sold in 2021. And I condemned, and I said we should cancel that contract because, first of all, Glencore has been found guilty of perpetrating corruption in about 6 countries. But I said that deal was unfair and should be declared null and void. And one of the unfair decisions in that deal is that Glencore returned to sell the copper that Mopani will be producing. There is profit in the sale than in the mining, because mining is technical, it's labor and capital intensive. But after you do all the mining, then Glencore gets it at its own price in the contract, and then they sell it at whatever price.
And that's what they do up to today?
Yes, yes, that's what the agreement is, and that is why I called for the cancellation of that deal, that it was unfair, especially in light of the way Glencore was found guilty in London and in the US over these malpractices and practices of corruption.
So who will deliver us from these wicked acts?
That is why I don't want us to discuss jokes. I want us to discuss national matters. National matters like this program. That way, when our citizens are enlightened, they can put pressure on their member of parliament. They can put pressure on their minister. They will say, export. Why are you exporting Amalova? Why don't you process them here? We had refineries in Wansha, in Kitwe, in Mufulira. We had refineries everywhere. It's possible to have refineries that then ZIA can raise proper domestic revenue from our resources. Why don't you push that? If we don't discuss these issues, the politicians will get away with this. And they'll keep us with a petty debate every day. We are discussing who has a larger head, who has a larger forehead, who is darker, who is lighter. Yet our resources are being stolen.
I'm telling you, there is a book that every Zambian should read.
Yes, sir.
Ambassador. I encourage you also to read it. I was given by a technocrat from the US.
Yes, sir.
In Ethiopia when we came to Ethiopia that time.
Yes, yes.
It's called Economical Hitmen.
Yeah.
Every Zambian should read
Yes,
that. I didn't know that actually countries are sold. They are auctioned. That man, when he repented, the one who wrote the book, Economical Hitmen,
yes, yes.
how presidents, how there is state capture. Somebody is campaigning as the money from this company, that company. The moment you get in there, they say our plate is empty, you fill it.
Yes,
you
yes,
emptied it.
Yes.
And that goes on in Africa from time to time.
Yes.
Including you. You are speaking now because you are not yet president, ambassador. They are studying you and they know this young man is intelligent. They will start funding you.
So
they will start funding you. By the time you are coming there,
you are
just say, yeah.
So I've said it's possible to have an incorruptible leadership, but also a leadership that understands these systems and mechanisms. You cannot fight what you don't understand. Until you know it, you will not be able to overcome it or fight it. You will not even recognize that you've been captured. You will not recognize that your bosses are not the people that voted for you, that the bosses sit elsewhere. So an appreciation of the crisis. And Economic Hitman, I've had an opportunity to read it, but these are some of the things I also write about. That colleagues, let's have the discussions on the table. It is for the reason I called for an investigation when I saw a company in London claiming that they influenced our elections. That is not a petty matter. It doesn't matter what we did, whether we woke up at 04 and changed this country. If someone somewhere, then there's someone at the bar saying, how are you going to say that's just a foolish claim? You have to understand, but these are my children, I've raised them. I saw, I delivered them. But there's a man at the bar says, 2 of those are my children. Are you going to say they are Munguru? No, you will say, Let's go for a DNA test. Let's establish. He could be lying, he could be malicious, but let's establish. That is what I'm calling upon our investigation, that a city group that is claiming that they influenced elections in Zambia, that they were paid by a mining group to influence decisions in this country. And now we have tax concessions for certain mining groups in this country. It's not a matter you can wish away. It's a matter we should discuss, investigate and establish.
Oh, Jehovah. May we have the text messages, and before the text messages come, Ambassador, you know the problem that you have?
Yeah.
As opposition parties, when President HH was in the opposition, he would bring certain facts. And the problem you had as the PF, you were saying in your opposition.
Yeah.
Even when they are bringing facts, you would say, forget about HH, never opposition. Now, you have found yourselves
in opposition.
And now when you bring even facts, and that forget about them, never opposition.
They're just being malicious.
They are bitter that they are out of power. Even when something is correct. How do we deal with that?
So it comes down to the hostility, the type of politics that we should practice, that they should be issue-based, devoid of insult and malice, and that, look, if Emmanuel Mwamba is talking about Tazama, and he says the path you've taken is wrong, maybe let's listen to his concerns. I have cited that this government wants to turn Tazama into a finished product pipeline. I've said, but look at the various studies, including parliamentary recommendations that have said you cannot turn Tazama into a finished product pipeline, because how will you prevent the sabotage?
Because it will be like Nigeria.
It will be carrying petrol and diesel. And they want to they'll create filling stations the entire way from Dar es Salaam to Ndola. How will you fight it? Even if you were to put police, how would you police it? I recognize that when we created the pipeline in 1968, it was for finished products. But by 1973, Ndeni was finished, and we turned it and converted it into a crude, crude cracker. But what was the crime level in 1968? Very low. What was the risk then? Very, very low. And what was the integrity of the pipeline? The pipeline was proper. It could carry finished products at the time. This pipeline is old. It's almost 50 years old. There have been some rehabilitation that have been done, but the integrity of the pipeline, can it carry petrol? Can it carry diesel without those associated risks? But this government is determined to go that way. So if there was sober debate, they would say, but PF, if we're under Zama, what are they saying? Maybe let's get some old experts on this. Let's get the former managing directors of this. Maybe let's get some energy experts to come and discuss these concerns that are coming from the PF. For me, I want a Zambia that is like that. That the opposition we raise is not in malice and is not malicious. The opposition we raise is to make this country better.
Mr. Director, give us the lines again. I know people want to get there. Evening, your vision sounds more in line with the Zambia Must Prosper Party. Why don't you, sir, just team up with Zambia Must Prosper? That's what this person is saying. Joshua in Mufrira.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I think the vision for this country is known. First, we have national documents, Vision 2030. We have, for Africa, Agenda 2063. There are things that are common in the UPND, in the PF, in Heritage Party and other parties. There are things that are common. We want Zambia to prosper, all of us. But to others, they are just words. How can it be done? That is a difference. How can you do it? After studying the development plans, you study the development goals at the United Nations, you study the African Union, Agenda 2063. What do you think then can work for our country? And in a practical way, not just rhetoric, not just potential, but how can you translate that into development policies that take our country out of poverty, that take our country out of this suffering that we have.
Oh, Jehovah. More texts, Mr. Director, and we must apologize to the people. I've seen the technicians running around because of the faults on our lines. May God bless you. Evening, Mr. Mumba. I don't have much but listening. I am impressed. Hopefully, you are trustworthy. He's saying, hopefully you are trustworthy. Are you?
Yeah. So there is broken trust between the politicians and our people, the governors and the governed. We speak well. When we are given power, we abuse the power. We don't deliver what we promise. And for me, I've said this has to come to an end. You engage in a social contract and deliver what you pledged and promised. And also, when you are aware of the concerns and how the world system works, with the opportunity that the Lord has given me where I've served at international level, I would know that I'm a mining group. If president, this is not possible. Let's just save our people. We get other partners that understand our philosophy. So we have sometimes many leaders that will not even, like I said, recognize that they are being played, that they are being played like puppets, and they don't even recognize it because they make you think it's your program. We saw in the 90s.
International people.
Yes, we saw in the 90s where we embraced totally the structural adjustment programs. Our Minister of Finance was being voted in as the best Minister of Finance in the world. We only adopted it as our own programs. So there are tendencies to make their programs become your program at the detriment of your people.
More text messages, Mr. Director. I think this would be the last one because we are in news time. Ambassador Mwamba, would you handle the FISIP program differently? Regards removal of recipients of fertilizer as is currently the case. This is from Wilson in Lusaka. This is our last text.
Yes,
what
sir.
would you do?
So it's very sad that we do not have fertilizer across the country. It's very sad that procurement of fertilizer was only completed last month, hence these huge delays. It's very sad that we are competing on the list of beneficiaries. I would expand it to 2-3 million beneficiaries. FISIP program started as a poverty alleviation program where we're giving vulnerable people to then grow food and be food secure. But we've learned over the years that it actually provides bumper harvest to our country. We've become now an exporter of maize because of the FISIP program. Why don't we expand it? Why don't we make it part of us? Why are we growing food for 18 million and not the 400 million people around us? Why are we not growing for the 1.3 billion people in Africa? Isn't it shameful, Pastor, that a small country like Ukraine grows food for the whole world?
Can you imagine?
A small country like Ukraine grows food for the whole Africa. We are starving. Our food security is destabilized because Ukraine, which supplies the largest, bulk of fertilizer, and also supplies both maize and wheat. How can a country like Ukraine supply the entire Africa? Why can't Zambia, which has a favorable climate, longer rain season, fertile soils, be even a mass supplier and exporter of maize, wheat, and other crops? Why can't we be?
In fact, Ambassador, it's amazing. My wife and I just visited the ZDA today, Zambia Development Agency, and what we were learning there is so shocking.
Yeah.
That just there are about 15,000 people that cross into Zambia almost on everyday basis to come and look for food.
Yeah.
Now, if they are coming to buy meal, why still call them smugglers? Why not call them, we have a lot of importers?
Yeah.
Allow them.
Yeah.
And just the population in Katanga itself, there are more than 23 million people. 23 million people, if we target, I know the president has been going there and he says he opens up. Ambassador, just Katanga itself can give us about 2 billion, just in food and other things. As you said, surely the truck should be coming from South Africa.
So yes, so the mindset has to shift. Our small traders should not be called smugglers. Our millers and milling companies should be allowed to export milling meal, which is a finished product, which enhances, even our export sales. The secret is in growing as much as possible. You warehouse it so that there are no losses, even when it rains. You fumigate, secure them in those sheds and warehouses and storage facilities, and open up our country. For commercial farming, we've opened up all these big farming areas that we should exploit. It can be done. Like I said, when we look at Ukraine and Zambia, look, we can do better.
Do you have any word, Ambassador, to the would-be presidents? What should they do, including yourselves? Do they have to go for training? Of course, academics are part of that. Your MBA or your 2 masters, there are added advantages, but what would be your word, apart from having a human heart, just a human heart?
Yeah. So leadership is about service. It's about our people. It becomes immediately good leadership. You will not engage in corruption. You will not engage in self-serving interest if you recognize that leadership is about service and about people. We usually lose that way, where we think leadership is about myself, I'm privileged, I'm better, and therefore I can offer good leadership. We forget the very reason leadership exists is about the people. I want us to come back to the issue of service. There will be less insults in politics. There will be less fighting and violence in politics. There will be less acrimony. There will be less tribalism if we recognize that our duty is just to save our people.
I would also encourage, Ambassador, the people of Zambia to please get into agriculture. This issue, Ambassador, of course, when we began with my wife, just before COVID, we were so passionate, and as it would be, whether God wanted to test me and test this station, or whether it was just the sabotage of the devil to test this station, someone comes from Zimbabwe, and you saw how I pushed on castor. That Zambians should grow castor. I'm very passionate about this. And when I talk about something, I know the monies that are involved. Because I'm hearing from you people who are experts, Pastor, this and that. We didn't get it right. And I've apologized several times that they lacked due diligence on my part. What kind of a person is this? It's not that castor is bad. But Ambassador, my heart bleeds because even recently, Kenya is becoming a leading exporter of avocado. And they call it green gold.
Yes, it is. It is.
The money that is involved there, it's amazing. And one of the cousins to my wife is in charge of 4 states in America, including Washington, importing fruits from Mexico, from Brazil. And when he visited Zambia, he said, Mulam, get into avocado. You fly a plane, whether it be grafted, whether it be ordinary, once you put those trees 5, 10 years from now, Mulamu, you'll be sitting like this just from preaching.
Yeah.
You'll just be sitting like this, watching money flowing in. But you see, as Zambians, we don't tend to ipika tulie. Apope nefi. The people began avocado in Kenya. Little did they know, I'm sure they knew, that this will become big money for the country. Why is it that in Zambia we are always behind in things? We had Agri-Flora. You remember Agri-Flora?
Yes, yes.
The company that was exporting
flowers
to
and
Europe and what? That thing was just booming. The owner got £2 million. Within a few years, he made so many millions of pounds, and no Zambian bought that Agri-Flora. It went down. Why is it this way, Ambassador?
So agriculture remains a big potential. When I was ambassador in South Africa, Madagascar was under me, and I found that Madagascar's largest export is vanilla beans, and the climate in Madagascar is similar to Nakonde, Mbala area where we grow our beans, and that is just the beans as well. And me and my fellow ambassador from Uganda, we began to pursue it because the climate are similar. Vanilla is the most expensive beans in the world.
Really?
And where your ice cream comes from, and vanilla, vanilla products are so many. And there it is, our people do grow beans, so you're not teaching them anything new. It can be done. This is what you're talking about, avocado. Macadamia nuts, there's a farmer in Mukushi who's growing macadamia nuts and is the largest exporter. It's one of the most expensive nuts, like cashew nuts. They are crops in this country that can bring billions of dollars. But we have neglected the agriculture sector. It has just remained a potential on paper. We've never allowed it to graduate from potentiality to actual benefits for this country. And our forest also, we can grow pine trees and they can give us a lot of money. But until we have proper leadership, until we have also a right discourse in the country that discuss national issues, not petty issues, but we have a country that discusses petty issues, not national issues.
We'll soon be having a conference, Ambassador. I hope you come and visit and speak.
Thank you very much.
We need those things. President Edith Nawakwe, she is loaded in these agriculture things. The eggs that she brought here and the beans. I think this will be one of the best conferences that we have held. One of the best, because my wife and I now, we've been blessed. When I went to South Africa, I went to meet the investors that will help our people with finances. Because I love Zambia. I want to see this nation prosper. Ambassador, I can tell you, in Zambia, we can do a lot. One person says, but Pastor, why does Zambia beg? You have the water, you have the climate, you have the land, you have... Why is Zambia ranked among the poor countries? People don't understand it there. But it will just take a Zambian, you and I, to say, okay, the president and this government are moving this way. As individuals, let's also move this way. And let's find a common place and develop this nation.
No, it can be done. And it can be done in our lifetime. In China, a leader just emerged. They are the revolutionary leader in Mao Zedong. But another leader just said, no, this country can be better. In the last 30 years, they've lifted 500 million people out of poverty. China has become the second best economy in the world, if not the first. It's now a primary lender of money to the US and to Europe. The very people you go to beg for go to China to lend. Just 30 years ago, they were no different from where we were. In a lifetime, they've made those changes. It can be done, Pastor.
It shall be done.
Yes.
Ambassador, I'm very grateful that you made time to come and share with us about the development of this nation, especially on political leadership. I can only wish you the best that one day when you become president of Zambia, you don't refuse to come to Cabinet.
No, we'll be humbled.
For the interview.
Yes, yes, and I'll get it through the CEO, the right CEO.
No, I'm very grateful. And thank you so much to your wife and children. May God bless you. And I wish you political success.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you to the management here at Camnet. And this program is so wonderful. Time flies. It's a long program, but time flies. You don't even notice time has ended. So we thank God for you,
Amen.
the blessing that you are to this country, and the blessing that you are to all presidents.
Amen.
There is no president in this country that has not benefited from your wise counsel and, you know, your just the display of leadership you give us as leaders.
Amen.
We thank you also, you know, on behalf of many. I'm saying that for many people. Yeah. Thank you very much. And to our dear listeners, thank you very much. To those that called in, we thank God. We've taken your sentiments in and we'll learn from them.
Amen. Dear Cabinet TV viewers, on behalf of my wife, the CEO of this company, or Cabinet TV, on behalf of Elijah Chifita, and my editor there, Elias, and B-Mac, on behalf of the technical team and Cabinet members of staff, you are just incredible. Without you guys, without your input, we would not be here. And I want to thank the church leadership and the church that God has given my wife and I. We were born for greatness. Above all, you viewers, I want you to know that we shall change this nation. Keep watching Cabinet TV, because Cabinet TV is not just another channel. Bye-bye.